NATO's secret isn't in its headlines or troop numbers, it's in something far stranger. Tanks sealed in Norwegian caves and submarine hunters circling above Scotland. Officially, deployment to defend the North Atlantic once took weeks, stranded by distance and delay. But thanks to prepositioned firepower buried under Norway and an instant maritime surveillance shield at RAF Lossiemouth, that lag is collapsing from months to days. The result? Deterrence by speed, where every hour could decide who holds the Arctic front. How did Norway and the UK quietly rewrite the rules for rapid war? And what threat forced them to do it? The answer begins with NATO's most overlooked vulnerabilities. Inside every NATO war plan, there's a stopwatch no one wants to see run out. The moment a political decision is made, whether in Brussels, London or Washington, the clock starts. How fast can you move steel, fuel and firepower to the Arctic front? For most of the Cold War, the answer was measured in long, anxious weeks. Sealift convoys loaded in Virginia or Bremerhaven, then lumbered across the Atlantic, dodging storms and submarines, before offloading at ports that might already be threatened. Even in peacetime exercises, moving a single mechanised brigade from the US to Norway could take 10, sometimes 21 days. Add winter, and you might as well double it. The logistics chain was a marathon, slow, predictable, dangerously exposed. But NATO planners know the enemy isn't waiting politely. Every day lost in transit is a day for an adversary to dig in, cut off key terrain, or sabotage supply lines. That's the real time gap, the dangerous window between a crisis decision and the moment when real combat power arrives where it's needed. Even the fastest airlift can only fly in people and light kit. Tanks, artillery, and the heavy gear that actually holds ground, those can't be wished across oceans overnight. Without a way to close that gap, reinforcement plans are just paper promises. And in the high north, where the weather punishes hesitation, the price for delay can be territory, lives, or the entire credibility of the alliance. So the challenge isn't just moving troops fast, it's making sure the right equipment is already waiting for them, fueled and ready to roll. That's the difference between fighting in days and fighting in months. There's another clock ticking, silent but relentless, out at sea. It doesn't care about weather delays or customs forms. It measures the gap between a submarine slipping its moorings and NATO knowing it's there. For decades, that gap was a black hole, especially north of the UK, where the GI-UK gap yawns wide and deep. In the years after the Nimrod fleet retired, Russian subs could vanish into the North Atlantic within hours, sometimes days, before anyone picked up their trail. No eyes on the water meant no warning, no chance to intercept, and no way to guarantee the safety of incoming reinforcements. NATO maritime commanders call this the sensor gap. It's not just about finding a periscope, it's about shrinking the time from the first hint of a contact to a decision, what the experts call the cue to kill loop. Every minute shaved off that loop means another convoy gets through, another brigade lands safely, another undersea cable stays untouched. But when the sensor gap yawns wide, the entire reinforcement plan hangs in the balance. Ships, troops, and supplies are exposed, and the enemy gets to pick the moment and place of maximum chaos. So surveillance isn't a luxury. It's the difference between a well-defended coastline and a guessing game played at 30 knots underwater. That's why the return of round-the-clock maritime patrol and the ability to hand off a submarine track from one aircraft to another in real time isn't just technological progress, it's strategic insurance. The faster NATO can see, the faster it can act. And in the high north, where the margin for error is measured in minutes, not miles, that's the only guarantee that matters. Deep under the pine forests of Trondelag, where the rock is older than any alliance, and the winter air bites straight through steel, sits a network of climate-controlled caves that most people would mistake for Cold War leftovers. They're not. These aren't relics, and they're not museum pieces. This is the Marine Corps Prepositioning Programme, Norway, or MCPP-N, and it's as alive and active as any frontline base in Europe. Inside, the temperature holds steady, 12 to 14 degrees Celsius year-round, not for comfort, but for science. It's the sweet spot that keeps batteries charged, electronics dry, and lubricants from turning to sludge. Rows of M1A1 tanks, Humvees, artillery and crates of Arctic gear sit ready, each tagged, checked, and cycled through a maintenance schedule that would make a Formula One pit crew jealous. Norwegian civilian teams, about 70 strong, handle the day-to-day, inspecting, servicing, and logging every piece of kit. The US Marines oversee, but the Norwegians are the custodians. Their job? Make sure nothing sits idle, nothing rusts, and nothing fails when it's needed most. This isn't theory. In 2003, these caves supplied the first live combat issue, gear pulled straight from Norwegian bedrock, shipped out to support the Iraq invasion. Since then, they've backed disaster relief, humanitarian missions, and, more recently, some of the largest Arctic drills on record. In Nordic Response 24, over 20,000 troops, American, Norwegian, British and more, drew vehicles and ammunition from these very stockpiles. The footage tells the story. Tracked armour rolling out of cave mouths into snowfields, engines coughing to life after months in darkness, crews suiting up in cold weather kit that's fresher than most people's camping gear. The secret isn't just storage, it's constant readiness. Every quarter, gear is rotated, batteries swapped, fluids topped. Even in the dead of winter, when roads glaze over and daylight lasts barely a few hours, the caves are humming. In January 2024, during a live snow drill at Værnes, Marines began issuing vehicles within hours of landing. No waiting for ships, no fighting the weather at sea. The gear was already there, warm and ready to move. That's how you turn a 10-day deployment into a 2-day sprint. In the high north, where hesitation is fatal, that difference is everything. Norway's defence planners have built a network, not a single point of failure. 8 strategic sites now form the backbone of the 2024 Supplementary Defence Cooperation Agreement, each chosen for its role in a system built for speed and resilience. Ørland Air Station is the main air combat hub, hosting Norway's F-35s and a steady rotation of NATO squadrons. Its runways handle heavy airlift, and its hangars are built for rapid turnaround. When reinforcement is needed, Erland is where Allied air power lands, refuels and launches again, sometimes within hours. Håkonsvern naval base serves as the maritime anchor. Norwegian frigates and submarines share the docks with NATO task groups and supply ships. Repairs, resupply and sea-to-land transfers happen here, turning the base into a launch pad for convoys under pressure. Bardufoss Air Station, north of the Arctic Circle, is the Arctic outpost. Helicopters, transport planes and special forces train and operate here, making it a forward staging area for NATO. Equipment is prepositioned, ready for rapid northern pushes. Setermoen Camp is the Army's stronghold in the north. It holds barracks, armoured vehicles and ammunition for a brigade. Norwegian and Allied troops assemble, gear up and move toward the border, supported by air and sea cover. Værnes Air Station doubles as an airport and a cave draw node. Marines and paratroopers land, clear customs, and collect vehicles and ammunition from climate-controlled caves within hours. Andøya Air Station, on the northwest coast, is the watchtower. Maritime patrol flights, P-8s and drones launch from here, providing surveillance over the Barents and Norwegian seas. Osmarka's underground caves store armour, artillery and engineering gear, main stocks not backups, ready for immediate use, even in winter. The Namsen fuel terminal is the artery, hardened and linked to road and rail, able to refuel convoys and aircraft even if main lines are cut. Together, these 8 nodes form a national grid. Reinforcements arrive fast, equipped and fueled, turning Norway's geography into a force multiplier. 9 Poseidons, freshly painted with RAF roundels, now call Lossiemouth home. This isn't just a return to form, it's a leap. In January 2024, the base hit full operating capability. That's not a ceremonial ribbon cutting. It means every aircraft, every crew, every sensor and torpedo rack is ready for real-world tasking, day or night. The numbers behind this transformation are anything but small. Over £350 million poured into the Lossiemouth development programme, rebuilding the airfield from the tarmac up. New runways, wider and tougher, handle the Poseidon's weight and the pounding tempo of round-the-clock operations. Hangars the size of football pitches house maintenance bays, mission planning suites, and the nerve centre where RAF and US Navy crews plan their next hunt. But hardware is only half the story. The human side is just as relentless. RAF crews, many with Nimrod experience, train side by side with US Navy detachments. They run drills on sonobuoy patterns, acoustic tracking, and emergency repairs, often in the same 12-hour window. The Atlantic Building, a sprawling operations and training complex, lets crews swap intelligence in real time, turning every sortie into a coordinated push across the North Atlantic. Lossiemouth's air traffic rarely sleeps. P-8s taxi, launch and recover at all hours, their patrol arcs stretching from the Norwegian Sea to the GIUK Gap. Each flight means another patch of ocean swept, another submarine forced to play by NATO's rules. The result is a base that doesn't just keep up with the threat, it sets the pace for the entire alliance. Stretch a map from the Scottish coast to the edge of the Barents Sea, and you'll see something new. A seamless maritime screen, stitched together by Poseidon patrols from Lossiemouth in the west and Evenus in the east. This isn't just a line on a briefing slide, it's a living, breathing belt of sensors, sonar buoys, and overlapping aircraft arcs, an unbroken anti-submarine warfare net that watches every mile of the GIUK Gap and Norwegian Sea. Every P8 that lifts off from Lossiemouth or Evenus carries a payload of multi-static sonar buoys. Think of them as underwater microphones, each tuned to catch the faintest trace of a submarine. Laid in overlapping fields, spaced 3 to 8 nautical miles apart, they create a mesh that's both wide and deep. These buoys don't just listen, they talk to each other, bouncing signals back and forth, triangulating targets in real time. The result? A detection zone where a modern Russian sub can't cross without tripping alarms up and down the chain. RAF and US Navy crews, joined by their Norwegian counterparts, plan these fields like chess players. Patrol boxes are handed off seamlessly, Lossiemouth to Evenus, Evenus back to Lossiemouth. So there's always an aircraft on station, always a fresh set of eyes and ears. Data from every buoy, every pass, flows straight into NATO's command network. Q to kill loops, the time from first contact to torpedo launch, can drop to just 15 minutes. In practice, that means a submarine leaving the Kola Peninsula faces a wall of sensors, with nowhere to hide and no gap in coverage. The GIUK Gap, once a highway for adversaries, is now a bottleneck. And every convoy rolling across Norway's roads does so under the watchful protection of this maritime shield. Orders go out. The stopwatch starts. Within minutes, air crews at bases across the US and Europe are prepping C-17s and KC-130s for the sprint north. There's no time for the old marathon. This is a relay, and every handoff is planned to the minute. Marines assemble at staging points, kit packed for Arctic conditions, manifest lists checked against cave inventories already waiting in Norway. By the time the first aircraft touches down at Åland or Værnes, Norwegian teams are rolling open cave doors, unlocking racks of M1A1 tanks, Humvees, and cold weather gear. It's not just a warehouse, it's a launch pad, and the gear is fueled, batteries topped, electronics checked by the same hands that keep them alive year-round. Inside the first 24 hours, advanced elements land, clear customs, and move straight to draw points. No waiting for ships, no wrestling with winter ports. Marines sign for their vehicles, run rapid checks, and start forming convoys. Maintenance crews from both nations work side by side, swapping out fluids, loading ammunition, and running diagnostics under the glow of cave lights. Fuel trucks top off at Namsen, pulling from reserves hardened against both sabotage and the cold. Every hour shaved off, the process is a mile gained on the map. By D+24, the first armoured columns are already pushing out onto Norwegian roads, heavy with steel that never left the continent. The phase gates are real: arrival, draw, deploy, and every one is timed, tested and drilled until it's muscle memory. For the Marines, it means landing in a foreign country and being combat ready before the next sunrise. For NATO, it means the promise of big CEs, not months, is no longer just a slogan, it's a living, breathing reality. Convoys snake out from cave mouths and depot gates, headlights cutting through Arctic dusk. This is not a parade. It's a test of every assumption about speed, terrain, and resilience. Norwegian roads in March aren't forgiving. Ice, snowdrifts, and the kind of wind that can shove a six-wheeled truck sideways. But the route planners have done their homework. Every mile from Osmarka to Setermoen, every junction near Bardufoss, was scouted, mapped and drilled months before the first boots hit the tarmac. Columns move in staggered packets. Armour up front, logistics in the middle, recovery teams shadowing the rear. The hauls are short by design. Instead of crawling across half a continent, these convoys eat up 50, 70, maybe 100 kilometres at a stretch. Fuel isn't a question mark. The Namsen terminal stands ready, its tanks buried deep and plumbed straight to hardened truck racks. Refuelling is clockwork. Pull in, top off, roll out. No waiting for a vulnerable pipeline from the south. No gambling on a port that could be mined or blockaded. Commanders ride with tablets and radios, tracking every vehicle's position, every fuel stop, every maintenance flag. If a truck breaks down, a Norwegian recovery crew is there in minutes, chains snapping tight, engine roaring. The margin for error is measured in minutes, not miles. And above it all, the certainty. Every kilometre gained on the ground is covered from above by Poseidons and F-35s, scanning for threats that never get close. This is what plug and play looks like when the rubber meets the Arctic road. Land, draw, move and fight, all within 72 hours of a single order. For anyone watching from the other side of the wire, this is a nightmare scenario. Surprise is supposed to be the attacker's greatest weapon, but in Norway and the UK, surprise runs headfirst into a wall of steel and sensors. The classic playbook: strike before reinforcements arrive, disrupt the logistics chain, slip submarines through the gaps, just doesn't hold up when the gaps are measured in minutes, not weeks. To even have a shot, an adversary would first need to blind the Poseidon patrols, shut down the eyes and ears that sweep the GIUK gap and the Norwegian Sea day and night. That means jamming, decoys, or risking direct attacks on Lossiemouth and Avenes, both hardened, both defended, both bristling with backup crews and overlapping patrols. And even if you could punch through that net, the next challenge is even tougher: the cave network. Not one depot, but a lattice. 8 sites scattered from the fjords to the Arctic, each dug deep, each built to take a hit and keep issuing gear. Sabotage 1, and the others keep rolling. To cripple NATO's plug-and-play model, you'd have to smash multiple hardened depots at once, under the nose of Norwegian and Allied patrols, with every move tracked, every delay punished. As one defence analyst put it, speed is the real deterrent. If you can't stop the clock, you can't win the race. The stopwatch is running, and for any adversary, that's the problem no missile can solve. In January 2024, RAF Lossiemouth's Poseidon fleet reached full operating capability, while Norway expanded its defence agreement to 8 key logistics and storage sites. These milestones are not theoretical. They are visible in documented exercises like Nordic Response 24, where US Marines drew combat-ready vehicles from caves that remain active year-round. The evidence is clear. By prepositioning equipment in Norway and sustaining a permanent anti-submarine warfare hub in Scotland, NATO can compress its response from weeks to just days. Yet some details, like exact stockpile numbers or classified anti-submarine warfare tactics, remain undisclosed for security reasons. What is certain is that logistics and surveillance now move as one system. The ability to reinforce the High North rapidly is no longer a planning goal. It is a demonstrated capability built on decades of investment and allied cooperation. The timeline between decision and deployment has changed, and so has the balance of deterrence in Europe's north.